Hello and welcome to another episode of The Mark Medley Show. And this episode is kind of sort of different only because every now and again I will do a podcast episode that's the exact same thing of a blog post that I wrote, because I think it's that important that I want folks to get it, whether they're reading it visually or whether they're listening to the podcast auditorially. So every now and again, when a message that I feel is that important, I will do it both ways. I will offer the podcast as well as the blog, or I'll write the blog and then read it as the podcast. And that's the case today. And the title of this episode is, and it's also the same title on the blog, The Critical Thinker, The Brilliance of the Sitcom All in the Family in 1971, or shall I say the brilliance of the sitcom All in the Family in 1971, and its relevance in 2019. So I'm going to read directly from the blog post, and if you want to go to the blog and you can read it for yourself, please go to the site thereadingcircleblog.blogspot.com. If you go there, and I encourage you to do so, you have the opportunity to read exactly what I'm saying here in the podcast. So again, it's thereadingcircleblog.blogspot.com. All one phrase, no spaces. thereadingcircleblog.blogspot.com. And the title of the blog is The Critical Thinker. The title of the post is what I just said, The Brilliance of the Sitcom All in the Family in 1971 and its relevance in 2019. Yesterday, I was watching the old 70s situation comedy sitcom known to us as All in the Family. If you were to quote unquote Google All in the Family, the description would read, quote, All in the Family is touted as the series that brought reality to primetime TV entertainment. The lead character, Archie Bunker, is a loud-mouthed, uneducated bigot who believes in every stereotype he has ever heard. His wife, Edith, is sweet, but not the sharpest knife in the drawer. They and their daughter, Gloria, and her husband, Mike, all live in a working-class home. Unfortunately for Archie, he can't avoid the people he disdains. His son-in-law, whom Archie calls, quote, meathead, unquote, is an unemployed student and of Polish descent. The Jeffersons next door are black. Edith's cousin Maud is a feminist. And later, his partners in a local tavern are Jewish. That's unquote. The show was produced by Norman Lear and Bud Yorkin. I've watched reruns of the show periodically, and regardless of which episode I am watching, it never fails to get a laugh out loud response from me. In my opinion, the show is funny as hell. Beyond funny, however, is the brilliance of how the reality of America at that time was symbolized through the characters of the show. The time was 48 years ago in 1971. The touting of the series as the one bringing reality to primetime television, in my opinion, is true. As I laugh and watch episodes of All in the Family, I also analyze the scenarios enacted and the views portrayed toward the various groups. In other words, the isms. Racism, sexism, classism, ableism, anti-Semitism, ageism, and heterosexism. I say the show was brilliantly put together because Archie Bunker symbolized America during that snapshot in time. And I'm sad to report that we seem to be reliving that era. In fact, it almost seems that we have, quote, Archie Bunker, unquote, leading the country. Now for my analysis. When you look at the show, Archie always thought that he was the smartest or most intelligent person in the room. In his mind, he knew it all and was always right, when the fact of the matter is Archie was the least educated. But that did not matter because of who he was and who he represented. While Edith is described above as not being the sharpest knife in the drawer, quote unquote, she was sharper than Archie. However, the problem was she was a woman, sexism, and was always treated by Archie as his servant and verbal punching bag, when in many scenes Edith was the smartest in the room. Archie's views on other races, classes, ages, and sexual preferences spoke for themselves and were clearly articulated throughout the scripts. Norman Lear and Bud Yorkin boldly pushed the envelope in days prior to political correctness. For those during that time and now who were of the mindset of the Archie Bunker character, I am sure they did then and now cheer Archie on, as Archie symbolizes a time when America was considered great by them. In parentheses, that's why we have to make America great again. MAGA, close paren. Many of us who fall into the category of one or more of the isms believe that to some degree we were able to move beyond the Archie Bunkers of the world because, after all, we've had an African American president, right? Based on everything we've seen, particularly since 2016, one might argue that the Archie Bunkers of the world had just gone underground or into hiding. Maybe the Archie Bunkers just chose to remain silent for a time and have now been unleashed now that Archie seems to be in the White House. Archie Bunkers of the world, unite! To this day, I am sure there are many who hated the show because it placed our reality, our dirty laundry, full frontal in prime time. There are those in denial of that's who we, America, were and perhaps still is as a country. And then there are those who didn't see then or now absolutely anything wrong with Archie's views, opinions, and actions. Remember, Archie was the smartest person in the room, loud-mouthed and uneducated, but the smartest in the room, at least in his mind nonetheless. There is that old cliche or quote attributed to French writer Jean-Baptiste Alphonse Carr that says, quote, "The more things change, the more they stay the same," close quote. And as I watched the 2 episodes yesterday where Archie was in the hospital and needed a blood transfusion and had to receive the transfusion from his African American doctor because of Archie's rare blood type. He was AB negative. That quote came to mind even as I laughed myself onto the floor and off of the couch. As a matter of fact, and I'm going away from the blog post here a little bit, going back to watching the episode yesterday, I remember Archie looking at the doctor and very softly and quietly to the doctor saying, "Doctor, she's BLAK." Remember, Archie was uneducated. So he looks at the doctor. Now, to him, in his mind, he was intelligent. But he looks at the doctor and he says, "Doctor, she's BLAK." And the doctor, picking up on Archie, looks at Archie and says, "Yes, Archie, but her blood is REDD." Again, a brilliant satire. Now, going back to the blog post, one of President Trump's favorite words is, quote, "sad," unquote. He uses that word quite often. And the events that we are witnessing as a result of all these isms, racism, sexism, classism, ableism, anti-Semitism, ageism, and heterosexism that was satirically depicted in 1971 seems to have come back with a vengeance since the electing of Barack Hussein Obama and subsequent election of Donald J. Trump. And that truly is, in President Trump's words, sad. Nearly 50 years later, despite all of the changes, things appear to be the same. My hat's off to everyone who had anything to do with All in the Family, as it is just as relevant in 2019 as it was in 1971. I invite you to join me live on Saturday mornings as I web stream around the world on gobrave.org. That's GOBRAVE.org. I'm on the air from 6 o'clock a.m. to 9 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time. And if you're in the northern New Jersey, New York area, I can be heard on FM radio 88.7 FM. Again, this post was generated from, or shall I say, this episode in the podcast was generated from the same that's in a blog post. And my blog is The Critical Thinker. And you can read that by going to thereadingcircleblog.blogspot.com. Now, I know I'm throwing a lot of links at you. I'm throwing a lot of .coms at you. But I do ask you to listen and follow closely. In terms of the podcast, do go to any of the distribution sites and you can subscribe and follow to it there. Regardless of which site you go to, it's on the bulk of podcast distribution sites. The Mark Medley Show is there. And then lastly, onemore.com. I ask you to visit my website. And that one's a simple one because it's my name. MarcAMedley.com. That's markamedley.com. Visit that site and that'll take you to everything else. If you visit the markamedley.com site, it'll give you information on everything I've talked about in terms of how you can access me, any services, more about the radio show, more about the podcast, more about the blog. It's all in there. So if you go to that website, markamedley.com, it'll direct you to all the rest of them. I thank you, and if you ever get a chance, or if you're a fan of All in the Family, I encourage you to really watch the show and pick it apart. Really take a look at what's going on there based on what Archie says, what Archie does, how he treats all the people around him that he interacts with, and see if that is not a social commentary of exactly where we are here in 2019. That was 1971. Yet if you parallel it with 2019, you will see that the more things change, even though we've had an African American in the White House, even though we have all this legislation, even though we've come this far, the more things change, the more things stay the same.